Welcome to the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast, where we all get together to learn more about performance testing with your host, Joe Calantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast. Today, you're in for a special treat. We have Leandro Melendez joining us, talking all about the Hitchhiker Guide to Load Testing, which is his new book. We're going to dive into it. You don't want to miss it. Leandro is a performance testing manager providing testing and consulting services to worldwide companies. He has over 20 years of experience in IT and over 10 years in performance practices, where he's served multiple S&P 500 companies all over the world, from the US, Mexico, Canada, Brazil, India, you name it, he's done it. He's also the author of the popular performance blog, Senior Performo, where he curates a diverse set of learning materials for performance testers and engineers. He is also the producer and host of the Spanish language version of Perf Bites podcast. If you don't listen to that, you definitely need to listen to it. I'll have a link to it in the show notes after this is done. And he's also known as Senior Performo. If you go to YouTube, you can see all kinds of learning he's been doing there. He does a bunch of different webinars, bunch of different kind of education things that you don't want to miss. Leandro also is an internationally known public speaker. He participates in multiple conferences, events, webinars, keynotes, workshops, and multiple talks he has under his belt. And he is now also the proud author of the brand new book, The Hitchhiker Guide to Load Testing Projects, a fun walkthrough that will guide you through the phases or levels of an IT load testing project. We're going to dive into this step by step, so you don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. This episode is brought to you by SmartBear. Listen, load testing is tough. Investing in the right tools to automate tests, identify bottlenecks, and resolve issues quickly could save your organization time and money. SmartBear offers a suite of performance tools like Load Ninja, which is a SaaS UI load testing tool, and Load UI Pro, an API load testing tool to help teams get full visibility into UI and API performance, so you can release and recover faster than ever. Give it a shot. It's free and easy to try. Head on over to smartbear.com/solutions/performance testing to learn more. Hey, Leandro, welcome to the Guild.
Hello, amigo Joe. How is it going?
Awesome.
So good to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the show. You seem like you've been really busy, so I can't wait to hear about what you've been up to. Before we dive into it, Leandro, is there anything I missed in your bio that you want the Guild to know more about?
Oh, no. You pretty much cover all of it and more, and it's quite extensive, and I really appreciate that you went through pretty much all of it. That was very,
Awesome.
very good cover.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, you are an expert in this field, and I'm really excited about this new book. I can't wait to get my hand on the physical copy. I know a pre-order as of now is now available on Amazon, and we'll have all that information in the show notes. But before we actually dive into the book, why write a book, Leandro? I wrote a book in 2014-15, and it was a pain. So why take the time and effort? I know you work full-time. You're doing all these other projects. Why write a book?
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is... I've heard someone saying like writing a book is like getting pregnant, going through all the pains that go through it. But in the end, you get a lot of joy out of the, let's say, not the experience, probably the outcome of the experience. But I have to say, the main reason was that the content of the book and the teachings that I tried to do, on one hand, when I started thinking of writing it, it all started from some sort of frustration. On one hand, trying to explain the complicated topics and often a little bit too technical elements of this trade of performance testing, which on those years when I started with this idea, I used to be only load testing or mostly load testing. And I came up with interesting ways to explain some of those complicated topics, but as you well mentioned, I'm a consultant. Every other month or several times a year, I would be with a new customer, trying again and again to explain these things and these practices to many people, C-level, management, seasoned performers and even novice or people that were just starting in the trade. And I started to repeat myself a lot. And I started to think, what would be an efficient, good, and cool way to share this knowledge? Well, there are many ways, which I'm trying to probably attack all of them at once. But one of them is the book. And I wanted to give it a try to explain all of these topics in a way that would be fun, entertaining, and that would wrap you in the process. That would be like an adventure. And that's why I follow it more or less in that template. Mostly I wanted to share knowledge and make it as fun and enjoyable as possible.
And I think you succeeded. But I love this book because it is tool agnostic. So it is almost like an adventure. You could read it on a couch and get a laugh and you learn. It's like there's no math in it. There's nothing specific about a tool. It is, like you said, like a manual, a get started guide or cheat codes for people to get into performance testing for sure. So I love it. I guess to start with, the scope of the book is, since performance testing is such a loaded term, what is this book specifically about?
So it's specifically, and as the title, not so short title implies, it's just about load testing projects, where your project is, we have this application, we need to slam it with some load and see how it does. And I would say another characteristic of what it covers, these load testing projects by nature, most of them, even in these modern agile days, most of them are not agile evolved, if that's a word. They follow or the initial practices or the common practices for this type of projects is in a, please don't be scared, I'm going to say it, is in a waterfall model where you have phases that you have to go through and complete tasks, get deliverables, get some items, like special weapons to kill the boss to move to the next level, and which are specifically the projects that I'm trying to cover and to explain in this book. Something that I'm still stating are most of the projects that the performers that listen to this show are still doing. Load testing projects, they engage into a requirement, they start to go through the phases, do the big time execution, analyze the results and deliver. Those are most of the projects that still nowadays, even in these agile days, they should be changing, I gotta say. But it's good that people understand it, since many of us are still doing that, even me. Right now, I'm doing those traditional load testing projects. And it's very, very important that everyone understands the steps, the concepts, and what it involves, all this beautiful trade that we're into.
Absolutely. Now, because it's load testing, is the only way to do it is as a waterfall? Because I know you can introduce it earlier in your software development lifecycle, doing a shift left with one user. You check in some code, maybe you gather some performance statistics. But in general, for a load testing project, doesn't it have to be waterfall? Almost.
Most of the time, it has to be waterfall if you are brought up to a project that is already, on one hand, probably on production, that was no automation done, that it has not been. And again, this is why I'm pointing this out. It's sadly most of the projects as a consultant that I walk into that do not have instrumentation, do not have telemetry, do not have that many unit tests, that you are just dropped into it. Here it is, our project, do load testing on it. We need to, this helpful question, we need to know how many users can the system sustain or serve without having any degradations in terms of performance. And again, that's why more or less from this process, waterfall is arguably, I would say, the only way to do them. Of course, projects, systems, applications that have been generated with the best practices on agile testing probably may not have to go fully into these steps, But as an introduction, and I would say as the base for all this work, I think people will get benefits on understanding and following these best practices for these projects. And as well, the ones that are fully engaged in agile processes will learn and understand from where most of the practices that we do come from. And if all goes well, part 2 will be around agile performance testing. Hint or spoiler alert, second part is in the process, where we will dive into those differences on how agile continuous DevOps projects should embrace performance testing. But this is mostly for load testing projects where you are said, we need to know how many users can we support, how far can the system go, etc.
Nice, nice. So the book is divided into 5 main sections, and I thought we touch on each one, just give each one a teaser. You have to buy the book to get the full awesome info here, but I thought we give a taste of each chapter so people know why they need to grab this book. So the first one is level 1, and it's called Discovery. I took tutorials and introduction, and you introduce something called the why, the how, the what, the who, the when, the where. I'm just curious to know, out of those was that 6 of them or 7 of them, which one do you think is most folks skip over?
Again, arguably, but to me, and in my experience, the most important and that is most overlooked is why. Why are we jumping into this effort, into this project of doing a load test? Why are we trying to do this? What brought this? Probably the question is not why, but what. But from the why it comes all the rest of the information that we need to defer. Because this is the key element that most just oversee. We just to do a load test and start scripting, slamming the system, and give me some results. And why the why is a key component. This defines how are we going to proceed for the rest of the project. Most of the actions that we will do, what are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? How? Because if the reason for this is a new project that we're going to release, we may need to do some type of load testings. If the reason for this load testing is that we already see issues in the system, we may try to do a set of actions and so on. The variations, if we need a spike test, if we need a load test, a stress test, a larger test, an endurance, if we need to push it further. And from things as simple as what type of processes are we going to include in our test? Is it a spike test? Well, we will just focus on the processes that will spike and not pay attention to 99.9% of the other processes in the system. If it's an average load day, we may need to segment differently what are we going to pay attention into. So in these initial findings, in this tutorial level for your adventure, we need to clarify the questions around all the project or around all the system, around all the needs, around all the actions. But most importantly is why are we embracing in this adventure? And talking about adventures and quests and movie plots, novel plots, that is the main reason. Why does our hero has to be the hero? Why is he embracing this thing? Why is it like, nope, I'm Neo, I'm the chosen one, I won't embrace into this? You need to know he is the chosen one, he's special, and he needs to embrace the adventure. So this is the main question. Why are we becoming the heroes of this adventure, I would say?
Absolutely. And you mentioned like performance test lead must find out the requirements or reasons for the performance load test before they do anything else. Do you find as a consultant, maybe someone thinks, oh, I'm being hired as the expert, so I should know, I'm the one that should know what the requirements should be for this application? Is that where sometimes people get tripped up?
Oh, yeah. There are some sort of expectations on both sides. On one hand, the customer usually will think that you will come as the almighty and all-knowledgeable performance engineer that will magically clap your fingers and erase half of the performance errors right away in the universe, should I say. And on the other hand, as a consultant, you come in with lots of knowledge, with lots of experience and understanding, but here's where also on both sides we have issues. The organizations expect us to tell them everything and to come knowing everything about, and probably even about their system, about their processes, about what they do. And for us, many of us are already, let's say, very involved into this, I would call it vicious cycle, in which we're already like, okay, yeah, these processes, automate, execute, slam the system, get out, deliver the report, we're done. Where we should be doing a little bit more analysis, understanding what is the need. Is like a joke we have here in Mexico. A bad doctor, you will come into the office and the doctor will give you paracetamol or Advil for every illness that you may have, where that's not the right thing. A good doctor will ask you about all your symptoms, how you feel, where it pains, what is happening, when did it start, all that, and then he will decide, he or she, what is the best course of action to take for you. So I would say there are some of those misunderstandings. On one side, the customer should have lots of information, or the consultant should be able to ask many of those questions and be very precise about asking where it hurts and how to measure those pains.
Absolutely. You just open up a memory pocket. My grandmother was Italian, and she used to swear by witch hazel for everything. She used it for everything. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of like Advil, I guess, in Mexico. But anyway, what I thought was interesting that you introduced here also is proof of concept. So how does proof of concept come into play at the very first stage?
So for a load testing project, what we are going to do is generate multiple automations and trigger them and simulate user activity. But in my experience and many places that we have been providing services, not all the solutions, not all the applications will go over standard automation practices. It won't be easy. They might be ciphered, they might be encrypted, and even silly examples where I had a project where we had to measure more or less the performance of cows. They were being milked, and we should measure not only the device, but how much milk would be part of the metrics. And you need to figure out, the device had some sort of controller that you could extract that information, but you need to make sure that you can automatically generate that activity. And there are multiple examples where we have had...
Was that a real example with the cow?
Yeah. Okay. There was a system where I had to gather the measurements from, these devices where they plug them and they extract the milk. Yep. And these devices also have microcontrollers where you can gather lots of information from them. And
so Leandro had straw nipples after this POC.
No real interaction with cows happened there, thankfully. Yeah, that was mostly playing with the device, playing with how it performed and the measurements that it would bring. The people in charge will take the devices, plug them, and do what they were supposed to do. And I was safe in an office, just looking at the numbers. But so many of these things, Windows applications that go over the wire in binary or encrypted, ciphered, old applications that use components, WCFs, Java remote processes in old ways where even if you can capture information, that's just gibberish. It's encrypted. You won't be able to mimic or forge the messages, which is a key component. So, yes, it is a very important and at times overlooked step. If the application, you know it well, you have played with it, or you know what type of application it is, you say, yeah, sure, I can. But if it has also, I don't know, if it's using Kerberos, if it's using a specific authentication, I don't know, some of those issues that we have encountered and that you need to find a workaround, a way to dispatch that project. And if you cannot measure how much milk comes, what's the performance of those cows, you may not be able to do that project. And that's why I brought it up. Some other experiences, video games. If you cannot simulate the action in a video game, and silly enough, that was my first ever performance project. We had to automate some sort of AI routines that would respond to the video game playing against each other. Can we do that? Is it possible? How can you generate such actions in a performing manner as well? So multiple questions. Can we do it? That's one of the initial things that you should be able to tell. Certainly we can, or let me go and do a POC and figure things out. That's really, really important.
Nice. So we're on level 1. We jump into level 2, which would be chapter 2. It's called Design, Writing It, Quest for a Performance Story. So I thought this was interesting. Like, why? I think a lot of people overlook now writing things. And one thing you said is you need to prioritize what's important to get documented. Why is that?
So there are multiple elements in a performance testing or load testing project that I have seen in multiple organizations that just are not covered, go on an email, or are just wide open. Like you will just have a test for 10,000 users, and that's it. That's what is said in the description of the project. So everyone...
I hear background noise. I don't know why.
The neighbor's washing machine is doing its thing.
Oh, okay.
It's raining, so you may be hearing water.
It's better now.
Sounds like it stopped already. Sorry for that.
No, that's all right.
So let me start over again.
Perfect.
So a reason to have everything documented it's very important, because on one hand, it will give you guides. It will give you specific instructions of what is needed, what has to be done, how much will we do, how much we want to do. And I've seen many organizations where all the performance test plan, all the indications, all the documentation, it's just, hey, just simulate 1,000 users. And that's it. They won't say anything else. That's your only indication. That's all what is in the guide, in the plan. And being a consultant, more or less like a contractor or someone that needs to have everything, all the T's crossed and I's dotted, it's very important. Not only, and it's important because if I had the experience when some people selling the project did not scope everything very well, and the customer was like, oh, well, you're going to be doing all that for me? I was like, oh, what? Uh-oh. And in just 2 weeks? Wow. And I was like, what? Uh-oh. So some of those things where you need to plan, specify, and define exactly what you're going to do, how far are you going to push the system. Some other elements that at this phase you need to describe well, what actions, what counts as a business process or a business flow where you have multiple business processes, how to do it, how not to do it, that you won't fix defects or that you won't be updating the database, silly things that oftentimes are overlooked. And some customers were like, wait, wasn't the performance engineer going to fix that query? What? Why? And from silly things like that to huge things where it was overlooked, how much would we take to script? How many scripts were we going to do? And some customers expected a script per available process in the system. And it was a huge system with thousands of processes. There's no way. So it's really, really important. Like a contractor, if you're going to build something, if you're going to put together a building, if you're going to build an airplane, detail by the bolt what is going to be included in that airplane in your load testing project. So, and in the end, that's going to be a document. I call it, well, 2 documents. One, the performance test plan. And on the other hand, the test cases, which also have perks. I don't want to spoil the book, but it's very different a test case for performance and load testing than a functional or everything else that you may have around. With those 2 deliverables, it's recommended for you to get a sign-off and to make people accountable for what you're going to do. At least that they read it, that they are aware, or at least that they received it and they are okay with whatever you said, even if they didn't read it. Same for the test cases that you documented, what is rightly what the process should do. So those documentations are incredibly important.
And what I like, it's not just one side. It's not like you're just trying to cover yourself with that signature. It's also, I think you mentioned something like, it's almost a map then after that. So once you have agreement, you almost have like a map you can use to go forward, which I think you stress in the book as well.
It's a little bit like when all the sages and the old guys in a tribe used to tell the story, the prophecy, how things were going to happen, that's your guideline of how things are going to happen during your adventure. As well, it paints on day one, what am I going to be doing? You can paint it at the detail per time. So yeah, it's really important.
Nice. So you know the requirements, you have your map, you're ready to go. It's time to get busy and actually create the planning phases done. It's time to construct. So should testers just jump right in now and let it rip? Or is there anything else they need to do at level 3?
So in level 3, where you start building up things, as you mentioned, many think it's just building the scripts and there you go. There are multiple other elements. You have the scenarios, you have to implement monitors, and you have to go through multiple steps on each one of those tasks. Because as an example, with the scripting, you don't just click record on your recording tool or your load testing tool and gather all the information. I have also developed, and I have been sharing a set of 10 steps, best practices of how to generate, I like to call them bulletproof scripts. Often load testing scripts would be kind of fragile, I used to call them diva scripts when, for weird reasons, some of them would break. You have 100 iterations, and on 2 or 3 of them, they would fail, and you would have no idea for that. So I will describe you as well. What are the best practices? Why it is important to know the process, to not to jump right away recording, to not to try to correlate on the go. On my first years, and I say that from experience, I was just record, replay, where it breaks. Okay, here I have to fix something. Record, replay, play again, fix something, play again, until I got to the end. That's a very bad practice. So on this stage, you will start to construct and have a bulletproof, not only scripts, scenario, monitoring, and everything in place, ready to go.
Nice. Now, when I first started, I actually started off as a performance engineer like in 1999, 2000. You mentioned correlation. I'm just curious to know, is correlation still a thing? Or do these tools handle it for you automatically now?
It's many tools promote that they have automatic correlations, that you can create rules, or that they will recognize what are the most common, or that even would have them packed into this, and you can tell it is this type of system or is that other system, and the tool will come up with some predefined correlations. And yes, many tools already aid you, but, and this is a personal opinion and preference, you still need to know what you are doing, how a correlation works, how to build those rules, just in case the tool is not catching it out of the box. And this is where I am a little bit paranoid and suspicious. I rarely use them. I like to come up with clean correlations to make them the best possible. If the tool has a variation or something that doesn't match up, I know where, I know how to fix it, and you can. And an advantage, once you identify them, they repeat all over the system. You can re-implement them, create these rules yourself, and the tool there will help you a lot. But the process of identifying, scripting the correlation and implementing it, it's, I would say, priceless and one of the most difficult, and when you master it, most entertaining tasks in automating performance testing, the Stockholm syndrome that I mention all the time. That's where I would say it is.
Absolutely, and this is covered in the book, so that's why I brought it up. All right, so we're going through it really quick now, but it's just a teaser for folks. Like I said, you need to get a hold of this book. So just a few flavors of each chapter. I'm going to jump to level 4, which you actually put into action. It's the execution piece. I like how you mentioned the importance of a sound check. So I know back in the day, a lot of times they'd say, oh, the first transaction always took the longest because the database server was warming up or something. So what is a sound check? Do you have to do anything before you actually jump into executing the full plan that you already have up until this point?
So a little from the previous level, you did some sort of sound checks, you did some shakeout runs, you did some tunings, and you did some low scale and volume executions to make sure that your things are okay before the great day comes up. But on the great day, most probably you invited or you asked to be aware or available to the ATs in your organization, the DBA, the network administrator, and many other people, probably even the project lead is around. And you don't want to waste time from them, from the resources, from the people. So it's recommended that before everyone shows up, very much like a band would do, would check the guitars, check the microphones, check all the gear, check all the equipment, and make sure that at the moment that you start the big play, nothing, absolutely nothing will fail. If it does, you will have some time to fix it, tune it, or put it in place. And this is another step many teams overlook. It's the day, I just saved up everything yesterday, and today I'm ready to run. And they click run, and the load generators are down. Why are they down? Please, Mr. CEO, wait for me a little bit while I figure out why the load generators rebooted, or I don't know, silly errors that can be a big embarrassment or a big waste.
Absolutely. And so, like I said, you jump into a bunch of other things in level 4, but then you get to level 5. I love this, I guess it's an analogy, is you call it solving a crime, because I always thought creating a script was easy. Actually finding out what to do with all those results was really hard. And it is like almost like a crime scene. My wife makes me watch these creepy crime shows, and it's always like, oh, I know who did it. And then after a while, you're like, oh, that guy didn't do it. And case goes cold. And then it's all these weird branches where you finally actually find who actually does it. Where it's someone you didn't even think. And it's just like a performance test. You think, oh, it's the CPU. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not. So like, why is it, I guess, let me stop talking at you. Why is this called solving a crime, or solving the crime for level 5?
So, and very in tune with the cop and police TV series and soap operas that you mentioned, it is like coming to a crime scene where you picked up multiple elements from when the crime happened, the crime here being the load test execution. Lots of stuff was generated during that execution, and you need to put together and make sense of those, of the evidence that you will find, the blood that is in the wall, the angle that the bullet was crusted inside of the wall or the body, or creepier things, right? And you need to be able to deduce what is causing, and looking for these other correlations that happen in between the metrics that you already gathered, and be able to say, General Mustard is guilty and he killed it with a pipe. And I don't remember what other elements could you say include, but you have to put together and give an estimate or a diagnosis of what is the problem. And that is like solving a crime. Pretty much you have to get your pipe, get your investigator hat, and say, elementary, I have the answer.
Nice. So for folks that don't know, there's also a bonus level where you'll have to get the book to find out what the bonus level is about. Because folks usually like to keep these, like when I keep these episodes around 30 minutes long, Leandro. So I'm going to wrap it up. I guess before we go, you've given a bunch of actionable advice. So is there one piece of actionable advice you can give to someone to help them with their load testing efforts? And what's the best way for folks to find or get their hands on this book? Alon?
Okay. Oh, wow. There are several points, and picking the most important one of the book. I can go with one, but I will say a few, just name them. The reason for the load test, super important. Have documentation and sign off so that everyone's aware and you're protected, the good old CYA. Good scripting practices. And make sure that once you execute, you get the best results, the best information, and analyze them. One key element for each step of the process. And about the book, which for the video version, I cannot wait to show it off. Here I have it. And for the ones that are just listening, here's the sound for the pages. Sounds beautiful, isn't it?
Knowledge. I love the sound of knowledge.
So the Hitchhiking Guide to Load Testing Projects is right now on pre-order state in Amazon. And it will be released in the electronic version, pre-order electronic version, on September the 10th. The printout will be available. We couldn't put it on pre-order format. We're newbies on this publishing trade. So, but the paperback format will be available on September 10 as well. And to be purchased after that date, physical format on the US, UK, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, Japan, Canada, and Australia, all those Amazon sites, you'll be able to order it and receive it. For the rest of the countries of the world, the electronic version is available. And I'm trying to figure out how to get it on the other places of the world that the paperback is not distributed by Amazon. But probably you can order it from the nearest, as an example, from Mexico, you can order it from Amazon USA. And I'm working out on some other ways to get that done.
So, yeah, is there two versions? Is there an English version and a Spanish version?
No, for now, just English. It's the, well, excusing the Chinese people. It's the most widely spoken language in the world, I believe, after Chinese, of course. And that was the initial step. It's in the plans, it's in the works to get a Spanish version. And who knows? I'm thinking if it's worth it, probably other languages. Let's see which ones get more demand right away. But right now, English.
I think it'd be a good audiobook too, because like I said, it's really written at a level where it's not, you're not going to get bogged down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so little.
It's in the let's say the to-do list or nice. The backlog.
Cool, awesome.
Narrated by yours truly, hopefully.
That's right. Thanks again for your performance testing awesomeness. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testguild.com/P74. And while you're there, make sure to click on the Try Them Both Today link under the exclusive sponsors section to learn all about SmartBear's two awesome performance test tool solutions, Load Ninja and Load UI Pro. And if the show has helped you in any way, why not rate and review it in iTunes? Reviews really do matter in the rankings of the show, and I read each and every one of them. So that's it for this episode of the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast. I'm Joe. My mission is to help you succeed with creating end-to-end, full-stack performance testing awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Guild Performance and Site Reliability Podcast. Head on over to testguild.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and online testing conferences. Don't forget to subscribe to the Guild to continue your testing journey.